What's good? I go by Osiris. I got a topic today talking about the passing of Dianne Feinstein, and I have some thoughts on it. Very important figure in American politics. She represents a lot of what could be potential of American politics and the sad ending and corruption of American politics. She has one hell of a story. If you haven't followed her from the beginning, it's since I've kind of jumped on and really I found out and started looking into her since I was looking into Nancy Pelosi. If you look back at the channel, one of my videos, I mean, one in the probably from 2020, I did a video on Nancy Pelosi, and I looked into her, like how she came up, and she's been friends with Dianne Feinstein for a while. And I kind of looked into how did they start out? Like, how did they get where they got to? You can learn a lot from, and this live is not going to be about agreeing with her policies or anything like that. This is just not this one here. So when we talk about guns and all that, and it's not for me right now. Obviously, I'm not on her side at this point. Probably in another life I was, but not now. This is just about how do you rise into power? Like, what is the story? How do you become a first here, a first there? Sometimes it takes some luck, and it takes on the back of some unfortunate incidents. One of the most important incident that happened basically in her life. I can show you here. I have a timeline, if you're just listening, of Dianne Feinstein's career, just a very general timeline. Her career has been marked by a series of groundbreaking firsts that set her apart as a trailblazer in American politics. She was elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, marking her entry into politics in 1969. But this one is very interesting. A tragic event catapulted Feinstein into the limelight. She became acting mayor of San Francisco following the assassinations of Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk. Later, she was officially appointed as San Francisco mayor, becoming the first woman to lead the city. So what happened is she stepped over the dead body of an, I'm not blaming her or anything, but this is how her career started. Is that, and this is not going to be a live to be bashing her. I'll play some stuff. I'll have some commentary on it, but she's gone now, and the overall message for me is rest in peace. Now she's at the final judgment. This is not for me to judge her at this point. But going back to the career, it is very interesting. She announced the passing of George Moscone. That was turned into a political ad. So when I say that these politicians are savage, I mean that they are savage. Let me play that video here. I played it in the wrong tab. But let me play this video here from this, just a 30-second video. I was quiet there because I was listening to the video. You were not listening to the video. Here it is, just 30 seconds.
Both Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk have been shot and killed. And I took a look at me making that announcement, and I saw the eyes, and I thought, and I heard my voice, and I recognized for the first time I was in a state of shock.
I remember it actually as if it were yesterday, and it was one of the hardest moments, if not the hardest moment of my life.
So they turned that into a political ad. known by political insiders as potentially one of the most effective ads in the history of politics, off of the dead backs of assassination. And I'm going to play this. There's a video here that breaks down, there's a bunch of videos on this and stories and all that break down what happened. This is from the DC show. This is through, this is just a YouTuber, I believe. I thought this was affiliated with a corporate media, but I don't believe so. Let me play this
Political.
here. I'm going to start it right around here. You're going to see some faces that are familiar. San Francisco politics is marred in some very dark historical moments.
San Francisco had the power to appoint someone to a vacant seat, and therefore the mayor had the power to reappoint Dan White, or someone else. At first it seemed like Moscone would reappoint White, but after he was lobbied by Harvey Milk and others on
White is the one who did the assassination.
the board, he decided against it. This would prove to be fatal for him. On the morning of November 28, 1978, White arrived at City Hall, driven by an unsuspecting aide, and armed with his police-issued revolver. White decided to climb through a basement window in City Hall to avoid being detected by guards at the main entrances of the building. He requested a meeting with the mayor, who at the time was meeting with future mayor Willie Brown. The mayor agreed to meet with Dan White.
Yes, that Willie Brown right here. That young Willie Brown on the left.
At the main entrances of the building. He requested a meeting with
There's Willie Brown. San Francisco politics it's dirty.
the mayor, who at the time was meeting with future mayor Willie Brown. The mayor agreed to meet with Dan White, though the outcome would not be as White had hoped. George Moscone told Dan White that he wasn't going to reappoint him. Moscone could see that White was visibly upset, so he welcomed him into the mayor's lounge for a couple of drinks. It was inside the lounge that White made the decision to shoot and kill Moscone. He shot Moscone several times, including once in the head. He then exited the office, being stopped in the hallway by Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein is presently a senator from California, but at the time she was president of the Board of Supervisors. When Dan White walked by her on that day in November 1978, she was unaware that the mayor had just been murdered in cold blood. White brushed her off, saying, "I have something to do first." White proceeded to the offices of the Board of Supervisors, where he intercepted Harvey Milk, asking him to step inside his former office. According to White, his goal was to convince Harvey Milk that he was a good supervisor who ought to get his job back, which was pretty delusional thinking considering that he had just shot Moscone in cold blood. According to White, Milk smirked at White's pleas rather than displaying any sort of sympathy, which prompted White to shoot Milk several times, including, like Moscone, deliberately in the head. It was Dianne Feinstein who found the body of Harvey Milk face down on the floor. She would announce to the public that Moscone and Milk had been assassinated and that Dan White was the principal suspect.
President of the Board of Supervisors, it's my duty to make this announcement. Both Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk have been shot and killed. The suspect is Supervisor Dan White.
Dan White's lawyers argued that White had acted with diminished mental capacity. In what would become known as the Twinkie defense, they argued that White's depression was exhibited in part by his decision to start consuming unhealthy foods. He would end up serving.
What's up, Jordan Lott? We do have a lot of stuff going on in the Libertarian Party. I won't get to it in this live. I'm still trying to absorb everything. But thank you for stopping by. And yes, they said commies got shot. There's something about San Francisco, isn't there? The people who have fought and maneuvered, and in this case of Dianne Feinstein stepping over the dead bodies of someone else to become mayor of this city. I used to think Chicago was the city with the dirty politics. I don't know if San Francisco might have one up on them. Of course, Gavin Newsom, while he was mayor, sleeping with his staff's wife, I believe. Just some dirty stuff that goes on there. But so she stepped over, and that's just, I don't have anything to say other than it. She literally stepped over and rose into power. It's always interesting to see what somebody's origin story is. From that moment, she was able to catapult and keep moving, climbing that corporate ladder. She later on won the U.S. Senate seat, of course, in 1992. She took a bold stance by proposing a ban on handguns in San Francisco, successfully defeating a recall attempt against her in 1984. So they tried to recall her in 84. She tried to ban handguns in San Francisco. And after that, 1992, got the money, ran. This was dubbed as the Year of the Woman when a record 5 women were elected to the Senate. Feinstein became the first woman in 2009 to chair the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, and in 2017, she became the first woman to lead her Democratic Party on the Senate Judiciary Committee. So she was involved in a bunch of firsts, starting in even before that when she became mayor, but 1992 as well. She grew up in a household with reportedly an abusive mother, and it sounds like verbal abuse from what I've read, and overcame that. Sounds like she was very close to her father, very similar to Nancy Pelosi as far as the closeness to the father part. There are some good things. To me, one of my favorite things to do in the country is to visit national parks. That's one of my favorite things to do. My wife and I have gone through. I like to go to the kind of the office area, the main headquarters areas of all the parks have their little headquarters area, and you can go in there and get your little national park stamp and stamp your book. And you walk around, you can see the monuments, you can see the mountains, you can see the caves. We were just in New Mexico, and we were able to go climb up and see the caves. My 4-year-old was climbing these ladders. It was up about 140 feet, believe it or not. You would climb up, then go a little bit and climb up. He was only 4, so he was probably the youngest one there doing it. Some hairy. It was a little, as a father, a little scary seeing him climb that, but he did well. No slips or anything, nothing even close to that. But I like that. I like going to national parks. I think if the government did not protect the national parks from corporations, then they would have been bulldozed and used for land, for businesses, homes, whatever, sprawl. And I will say she was a part of protecting it. One of my favorites is Joshua Tree. Joshua Tree I thought was a great park. We were out there years ago, and she kind of locked in her environmental legacy early on because you saw she just got there in the Senate, and she sponsored the California Desert Protection Act in 1994. The Desert Protection Act was signed into law. That was signed into law by Clinton. This federal legislation converted over 7 million acres of California desert into protected land, which I fully support. Specifically, the law elevated Death Valley and Joshua Tree to national park status. The information is on the historical account on the website. So I was just checking into, like, is this real? Did she really do this kind of stuff? Because I didn't even know any of this until I started looking into it. And I said it reminds me of Teddy Roosevelt in that regard. They share a common thread, believe it or not, a profound impact on the protection and preservation of America's natural landscapes. Roosevelt was often dubbed the conservation president, set an unprecedented standard for environmental stewardship during his tenure from 1901 to 1909. To my knowledge, you can thank Teddy Roosevelt for protecting the beauty of our national parks. And when you think about America, we've got mountains, we've got swamps, we've got, Midwest, we've got plains. And if you don't protect that, you won't have that. And it's still protected to this day. I have no problem donating money to the national parks. And, Teddy Roosevelt established around 230 acres of public lands, including 150 national forests, the first 55 federal bird reservations and game preserves, 5 national parks, and the first 18 national monuments. His actions laid the groundwork for the modern conservation movement and the establishment of agencies like the National Park Service. Feinstein's California Desert Protection Act was very similar in the walk of protecting it in California. I think that's probably one of the best things, just going through her history, that she's ever been a part of, or was. Her history is cloudy, though. One of the first clouds that was unveiled was when we found out that she was involved with a Chinese spy. I'm not alleging that she did anything, unsavory with the spy other than getting compromised, but it's a fact that she was involved with a Chinese spy for quite a bit of time. Only 2 decades, not that long. I did a comprehensive summary on the CBS News article. What happened? This article discussed how a Chinese spy managed to infiltrate the office of Senator Dianne Feinstein for nearly 20 years. The Bay Area, where Senator Feinstein's office is located, is described as a hotbed for Russian and Chinese espionage. The spy was Feinstein's driver and also acted as a golfer and a liaison to the Asian American community. And we all know of the woman we affectionately call Fang Fang. And there was a House committee probe into Eric Swalwell over that. How many spies do we not know about? Is what I would like to know, that are just floating out here all over the place. We don't know. But that's a part of her legacy. It's a part of Eric Swalwell's legacy. Obviously, he's California as well. What's going on out there in California? The spy was her driver and acted as her golfer. It was initially reported by Politico. Now all eyes are on, this is a quote, now all eyes are on Chinese intelligence in the Bay Area after the website Politico reported that a staffer for Senator Feinstein turned out to be a Chinese spy who reported back to government officials about local politics. What is so special about San Francisco that the Chinese spies are reporting back on local politics in San Francisco? And you fast forward to where we are now, what role did she play? We don't know. We don't know what role Feinstein played, or the spy who loved her, allegedly, played in bringing us to where we are right now. The spy had all these multiple roles, attended Chinese consulate functions on behalf of her. How does a driver and a golfer attend Chinese consulate functions on behalf of Dianne Feinstein? The FBI concluded that the driver hadn't leaked anything of substance. I'm sure they didn't, leading Feinstein to force him into retirement. The spy was with her for nearly 20 years. You can't talk about her legacy without bringing this up. Serious stuff. Remarkably, the spy was so deeply embedded that he represented her at these functions, further blurring the lines between espionage and diplomatic engagement. I don't know how that's even possible. But it did. That's part of the legacy. Part of her legacy is also her age. Later on in her career, as you know, we saw that she had to be wheeled out. And it seemed like when she was on the floor, she didn't know what was happening. And it felt like people had to tell her what was happening. She was basically on her deathbed and still being wheeled out onto the floor to vote for the Democrat Party.
It provides $823 billion. That's an increase of $26 billion for the Department of Defense. And it funds priorities submitted.
Yeah, just say aye.
Okay, just
Great.
aye.
Thank you.
Senator Feinstein.
So if you didn't catch that at the end here, her staffers are just like, you're confusing people. Shut up and just say aye.
And it funds priorities submitted.
Yeah, just say aye.
Okay, just
Great.
aye.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's the state of American politics. Just say aye. When she was alert, still old, but elderly, too old to be representing us in alert, she had no problem being savage. You knew I was going to play this clip. It's the infamous clip where she went savage on those kids.
Hey, I'll tell you what. We have our own Green New Deal.
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
Well, it's not
The
going to get
government's
turned
supposed-
around in
the-
10 years.
the
What we can do
Senator, if
is
this
put
doesn't get turned
ourselves-
around in 10 years, you're looking at the faces of the people who are going to be living with these
Guess what?
consequences.
The government is supposed to be for the people and by the people and all
You know
for the
what's
people.
interesting about this group is I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that. I've gotten elected. I just ran. I was elected by almost 1 million vote plurality. And I know what I'm doing. So, maybe people should listen a little bit.
I hear what you're saying, but we're the people who voted you. You're supposed to listen to us. That's your
How old are
your
you?
job.
How old
I'm
are you?
16. I
Well,
can't
you didn't vote for me.
Well,
I'm
she
voting for
voted.
It doesn't matter. We're the ones
Well,
who's going to be
words mean
impacted.
something.
It doesn't matter. We're going to be the ones who are impacted.
I understand that. I have 7 grandchildren. I understand it very well.
Senator, the cost of
And-
not taking this action is far higher than the cost of what the Green New Deal will be. And there
Here's
is
what-
enormous popularity for this bill around
Okay.
the whole country.
Here's
And we're
what
asking you to
we
be
are
brave and
proposing.
do this for us and for your grandchildren.
Get enough for everyone. I'm trying to do the best I can, which was to write a responsible resolution.
Any plan that doesn't
has-
take bold, transformative action is not going to be what we need.
Well, you know better than I do. So I think one day you should run for the Senate.
Great.
And then you do it your way.
But by that
But in the
time,
meantime,
there's
I
going to be a
just,
big problem.
I
We
just
have a
won a
letter
big
for you.
election.
And that was a very awkward moment where it's like everybody in the room is just off. She's off in the way that she's presenting herself to their concerns. Their concerns are off. They're grooming the kids into, the kids obviously don't know what climate change is or anything like that. They're just groomed into it. And there were kids who were burning an LGBTQ flag. And I'm just going to say this on the opposite side of that. They're groomed. They don't know what that's about either. So the grooming about, this is political grooming, not sexual. That political grooming can go on both ways. But you've got the political grooming of the little kids who have no idea what they're talking about. Then you have Dianne Feinstein, who's just old and crotchety. You get older, you just you don't give a damn. So you'd be like, bitch, well, how old are you? She just basically tell you, how old are you again? Nappy-headed Bebe's kid. What are you in my office for? Either she was off base or that was one of her most based moments. I just like watching that clip. I don't even know what to say about the clip because she doesn't tell them the truth about anything. She just says, well, I'm a senator. I know what I'm doing. A Chinese spy was underneath me for, I don't know how long at that time of the clip, but 20 years. I know what I'm doing, trust me. But there is one thing that she does know what she's doing. And just like Nancy Pelosi, it's when you count that paper. When you count that paper, at the end of the day, she had that paper right. And Nancy Pelosi, she has that paper right. She does not play when it comes with her money. How does someone on a salary of $200,000 a year later on in her career, less than that earlier, how does she get a net worth of 220 million US dollars? Dianne Feinstein, this is according to, let me get the source here. This is according to, the source is caclubindia.com. According to caclubindia.com, Dianne Feinstein's net worth was 220 million US dollars. Her annual income surpasses 35 million per year, allegedly, or did. A figure that further solidifies her financial prowess. I'm sure she's very, very, very financial oriented, or was. This income level is not just from her political career, but also from various other sources. What are those other sources? We'll get to that. She's serving as was serving, this article was written before, as the U.S. Senator from California with that huge income. Apart from liquid cash, she has a diversified portfolio of assets. Includes multiple bank accounts and a range of real estate properties across key American cities. So she hung on to her Senate seat literally until she died. And why is that? It's a pretty profitable seat. What we're seeing is that these politicians who are supposed to work for us, they're working for somebody else because we're not paying them that much. Her wealth is not solely from her salary. No, I realize that. It's not mathematically possible. It's a combination of, wait for it, lobbying efforts, government contracts, substantial gifts from her 3 spouses. Her financial acumen is evident in her diverse income streams. Yes, that's true. Throughout her political career, spanning more than 60 years, Dianne Feinstein has amassed significant wealth attributed in part to lobbying and government contracts. Her financial savvy extends to her banking. She has 4 different bank accounts, or did, including a Silicon Valley bank account with a balance of $10.44 million, which is likely a high yield account given the balance. I wonder if that, I didn't look that up to see what happened during the crisis of the banking closing that we covered. When was that? Was that this year or last year? I don't even remember. Feinstein was strategic enough to capitalize on the 2008 financial crisis. You know, the crisis that had a lot of people losing their jobs and losing their homes, making investments that paid off handsomely. She owns a luxurious mansion, or did, in California, among other properties. So when you see people, and I just want to give you her legacy, these are the big parts of her legacy. When you see people, you could say be disrespectful in her passing, you can see why. I don't think there is I'm not telling anybody how to act in somebody's passing, but for someone to be disrespectful in her passing, we can see why. It's not me. You won't see me say, yeah, I'll say they're probably not for me. I'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I'm not going to be against you when you point out open corruption as a part of the legacy, and it plays a role in how you view her. Looking at kind of the next piece here is I talked about the California $1 billion debacle for that railroad system. all of them were involved. Nancy Pelosi, they all got into it. They all jumped into it, and that thing went under. It was nothing. All that money. And that's later on in her career. So as you go through the timeline of her career, you see more and more. And again, This Is Live is not going to be questioning her policy. So I will give her credit for being an advocate for basically trying to ban guns. That's what she believed in. It's an opinion. I can disagree with it. She can disagree with it, but it's an opinion. Miguelifornia, one of the best, member of the Dilly meme team, has a excellent thread on what happened with the great train robbery in California.
Even more.
You don't say.
Phase one would build a line from San Francisco's Transbay Terminal to Union Station in Los Angeles.
I would say to our voters, vote for 1A. Our hopes for a better future are riding on you.
We're all extraordinarily excited about this project. I personally have been supportive of the high-speed rail project since my time as mayor of the city and county of San Francisco. Actually, it's a bit of an understatement. This is the biggest infrastructure project in California's history, and it does something remarkable in combining grit and glamour in a way that few other things can.
Perhaps the most ambitious high-speed rail project in modern U.S. history was approved all the way back in 2008. It promised to take passengers across the 400-mile journey from San Francisco to Los Angeles in just 3 hours, a journey that would take more than 6 hours by car.
It's very important to our country. Our flagship issue in this new Congress was to reduce combat global warming and to eliminate our dependence on foreign oil. This does both of those, as Ramneek.
Let's not let the details derail what is a grand vision.
It is the ability to move people quickly, safely, and in an environmentally constructive way.
But I think there's something else at play here too, and that's the glamour that I mentioned earlier. We're talking about sitting back comfortably, probably with a cup of coffee or tea in hand and a laptop online, while the landscape flies by us at over 200 miles an hour. We're talking about bringing the United States into the same transportation playing field as they've had for generations in Europe and Asia.
$900+ billion. It is secure. It will not be spent until the other parts, the 2/3 of the match, are met.
We know for a fact that an infrastructure project of this scope and of this magnitude will create hundreds, literally hundreds of thousands of jobs, both now and for generations to come.
I rise in support of high-speed rail because I believe the most important thing this legislature can do in the short term is to create jobs. And this is going to be $8 billion of direct spending to create jobs up and down the state, Northern California, Southern California, and the Central Valley.
That was Ted Lieu, and you saw Dianne Feinstein there. Here's part two.
Public infrastructure disaster in U.S. history. Overly ambitious targets, regulatory. The project was perhaps the single largest and most embarrassing public infrastructure disaster in U.S. history. Overly ambitious targets, regulatory issues, and general mismanagement have turned the project into a massive money-sucking black hole. Today, more than a decade after the train was originally approved, its cost has ballooned to almost $100 billion and is yet to transport a single passenger. In fact, the situation has gotten so bad that Governor Gavin Newsom was forced to scale down the project, saying that it will only travel from Merced to Bakersfield, far shorter than the original plan.
This is a train that's not working out so well. It's a fast train, but not a bullet train, so it's not that fast. And it was going to go from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and then a thing called cost overruns happened. And many of you know about it. Well, it's in the thing today, because I said, we're not paying any more money for it. California's lost control. And it's an incredible thing. It's got to be a straight run. And they build a section, and then they build another section way away, and then another section. And then they want to hook it up. It doesn't work. You can't hook it up. Can't.
Trump is hilarious.
Doesn't hook. It's a little crooked. The train doesn't go good that way. So they say, let's rip the sucker down, we'll start all over again. This is like a catastrophe. Like hundreds of millions over budget, totally out of control. And we told we're not gonna do it. I mean, We're not going to, it's been under construction forever.
The delay could jeopardize the train's funding plan and deadline to have it running between Bakersfield and Merced by 2030. According to the LA Times, that is expected to cost $22 billion. That's
nuts.
We knew this. We've been studying this darn bullet train for almost 10 years now. I wonder when people are going to be fed up and be like, nope, we're done.
Also, I'm no like engineer or civil planner or trained person, but this doesn't seem like the most efficient way to be constructing.
Certainly not. In pieces.
Just like in little pieces, and then like decades down the line be like, oh yeah, turns out I don't know if this is going to work out after all.
So when you make a little train set at Christmas, do you lay a track here and then run to the other side of the room and put one over there?
And hope they connect eventually.
And eventually be like, you know what? I just don't have enough pieces. I'm going to wait a couple Christmases.
I think I think for me, the final takeaway for her is going to be, if you're on the side where you celebrate firsts, go ahead and do you. But you need to look at the infrastructure and what our society, what our political parties reward, and look at the substance. Because you will have your first, I don't know, what's the first? Trans, or I don't know what it is. Whatever first you celebrate, there will be a first. And whatever, because you can make a first. First 600-pound senator. First brain-dead senator. All these firsts can happen. But what you looked at here is our system led us down this path with Dianne Feinstein. And it's our responsibility. She got elected. California had no problems with her. They rewarded her for being rich and staying in office, even though she didn't know what day it was. And ultimately, how can you blame her? This is part of her legacy, but as she's gone, her legacy is really, what does it say about American politics? We have Nancy Pelosi in office right now. We have Chuck Grassley in politics right now. Just got reelected. He's like 87 years old. There's no reason that you would be doing this job at 87 years old if it weren't for corruption. Your existence in D.C. is corruption, sir. It's evidence of it. There's no job that you would be able to have if it weren't for D.C. And as far as her, she climbed the ladder. She did what she had to do. She got the money. She got the chips. She didn't break any laws. Didn't get caught breaking any laws. So her legacy is intact. It's no diss to her. We need to figure out, what do we prioritize? If you want to do identity, and right now Gavin Newsom's saying we're going to have to get a black woman. Democrat parties do a lot of this black woman type of stuff. Why is the DNC moving the first primary to South Carolina? Because they know black people are stupid enough to just vote for Biden no matter what. That's why. Just out in the open. So as she passes, there's no need to diss her. There's some funny memes out there. I was going to play some. I'm not in the mood to. It's no need to diss her. Let's learn from it. And I'm talking about people who would side on that side with her. People who think she did a good job. People who liked her. That's fine. Let's learn something from it, though. And make sure that if they want to do a black woman, that it's a black woman that doesn't fall victim to power corrupting them like they did, like happened with her. It's happening right now. Learn to be better. We can take that and learn to be better. I agree. The first libertarian Tupac senator. Boy, I love Trump. Trump is hilarious, isn't he? Going back to he had some quotes on was it today he had a speech? Libertarian Party has some new merch. Okay, I didn't see that. Jordan Lott, what's going on with the Libertarian Party and Bobby Kennedy? Are they having like a fling? Are they having like a Travis Kelce Taylor Swift type thing? Like, what's going on? Is it more like Kardashian, Pete Davidson? What's the deal? Or is it not even that? I said that Dr. Shiva Ayadore should have been the candidate for, obviously with comic Dave Smith out, taking himself out of the running. I was saying it should have been Dr. Shiva Ayadore is who I would have gone with. He has the right energy, he has the right policies, he fits. I don't know. It sounds like they're still talking. I don't know what's going on. I saw an article here, and it's been mumbling. We talked about this a while back when RFK Jr. was on with comic Dave Smith and part of the problem, and then they kept kind of slurping up to him. And I was like, Dave, I'm with you all the way. Why are you slurping up this leftist authoritarian? I don't get it. And we kind of got it. That at that moment, it was obvious comic Dave Smith wasn't trying to position himself as separate himself from Bobby Kennedy. He was trying to basically prop him up because there's areas where he's good. So help me understand what's going on with that. I'm still trying to figure it out, so I'm not going to speak on it until I know what's going on. Jordan Lott says, Kennedy is flirting with the libertarians. There's love in the air. Heck yeah. So I know you're a fan because I think early on when I was kind of on I was waffling on RFK a while back. Now I'm a solid no on RFK, but there's a lot to like. I'm not against. I'm against him as a libertarian candidate for sure. If he wants to go independent, I'm fine with that. But I think the libertarian candidate under the Mises Caucus, they've got to be a libertarian. You've got to be stretching the Overton window towards liberty. Just because the dude is right on the pandemic, he doesn't even talk about it because he doesn't want to offend the Democratic establishment that he's still he's ostracized from. And I don't get it. He doesn't want to talk about it. He does not bring up the pandemic unless somebody else brings it up. And that's his strongest area. And he's not a libertarian. So I don't need the Libertarian Party to prop up a Democrat. I just don't need that. I understand that it brings eyes. I trust Michael Heiss and the crew. This is not to diss them. I really like them a lot. I've said nothing but glowing things about the Mises Caucus. I want to do a celebration of comic Dave Smith and, again, celebrate where they've come from with a mic that's set up right. The last time I did it, my mic was wrong. But I don't get that. There should be no flirting. What are you going to talk about? There shouldn't even be a flirt with that dude. I understand it's tough. I've been listening to the streams on the Mises Caucus channel. They do great podcasts. They talk about that, very open about what they're doing. They're open about what happened with comic Dave Smith. They're open about trying to find the right candidate. And they're open about how it's hard to find the right candidate. Who wants to put their life on the line to run for president? For what? You don't have much of a chance. If you did have much of a chance, you'd be literally putting your life on the line, like RFK Jr., because the Libertarian Party could take votes away from Republicans or whoever else. And, there's all this political chess that comes into play. So why would you want those problems? Especially if you're like comic Dave Smith and you can affect the culture even without that running for president. I can do tours. He can do tours now. Why does he need to run for president to do tours? He can change his mind, but it's tough to find someone, so they're going to look at a big name and be attracted to that. I don't blame them, but I think you have to have somebody who represents the ideals of liberty, period. So I don't care if it's a nobody. I don't care who it is, as long as they do that. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm not really for Jesse Ventura either. I like Jesse Ventura, don't get me wrong, but I'm not really for him either. You only have a limited select choice of options of people who are qualified. That's the qualification. I mean, there's other parts to it, and then Michael Heiss was even talking about a lot of people might not even want to run because what if comic Dave Smith changes his mind? He would win. he could change his mind right up until however they choose it. They do it differently than like the DNC or whatever. They have their um, what do they have? Their delegates event or whatever it is. And Common Dave Smith could change his mind right before that event and win it. So why would you try to sweat bullets if you try to run and Comic Dave Smith's like, I don't like this person running. Comic Dave Smith could change his mind, run, and he'd take it over. They talked about it. They're open about all that stuff. So I appreciate the transparency. Ray says he doesn't trust Jesse. Yep, we talked about that on that live. They're selling some libertarian yoga pants. Okay, I'm gonna get my wife some libertarian yoga pants. She'll laugh at that one. They got new merch going. Okay, I gotta check that out. Arya says, I'm libertarian, but I'm conservative in many aspects too. I believe in borders and nations and capitalism. I do as well. Libertarianism to me, Arya, is just simply, it's basically the founding of this country, peace, prosperity, and so it's basically, let me just break it down for the libertarian, because decentralization is an important one that's not in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So you have decentralization, peace. That doesn't mean strong. That doesn't mean you don't have strong defense. Peace. So decentralization, peace, and the opportunity for prosperity is my view on libertarianism. So as you can see, that has nothing to do with borders or capitalism. So you can have borders and capitalism in the ideas of libertarianism. And you could technically have communism in small pockets. So there's nothing, you can still have libertarian aspects there. Right now, the MAGA group is more important than the Libertarian Party. Even though the Libertarian Party is great, they're very important, don't get me wrong. What they did was an amazing feat, de-wokeifying the Libertarian Party. But they are a baby. They are an infant. Friend of the show, Steve Johnson, was in the chat during the debate. And he's a proud new father. Congratulations, Steve, again. And that's the Libertarian Party. They need to be bottle fed. They need to be burped. They need their diapers changed. That's not a diss. That's like the populist left, they're not even an infant yet. They haven't even been conceived. The Libertarian Party is on their way. You raise your kids from an infant. And MAGA is like a toddler. So MAGA is waddling around the room while the Libertarian Party is shitting in their diapers. And I think MAGA is more, they got their diapers on, or maybe they're trying to get potty trained. Maybe not even that far along, but they're both important. They both need to be nurtured. So you need both of them. You need libertarians. You need I don't even know what conservative is, but I think MAGA is what I would call the populist movement. You need both of them working in conjunction and really competing against each other. But the Libertarian Party has pulled candidates out when there's been too much overlap, which is very smart. The Libertarian Party can say, no, this person you're running is not libertarian enough. We're not pulling out of a race against Lindsey Graham. We're going to try to annihilate him. It's not going to happen, but they pulled out of the race with Blake Masters. They said he was libertarian enough. He kind of acquiesced a little bit. He didn't win, but that worked. So that's my view on that, Arya. Yes, populism. Yes, exactly. And I think libertarianism is a populist. You're trying to spread decentralization spreads power to people. So you can be populist and be libertarian populist and be conservative or whatever you want to describe it. I'm a constitutionalist, populist, libertarian, nationalist, Christian, futurist. I'm trying to keep on going. I forget. I think there's even more. Less government, more family involvement, for sure. Ray says the Libertarian Party is the stepchild that no one cares about and still lives in your grandma's basement. Why is Ray so spicy tonight? Ray Studio says the Libertarian Party is the stepchild that no one cares about and still lives in your grandma's basement. That's the old Libertarian Party, Ray. This is the new one. But yeah, I mean, if they choose RFK, then maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to go that. They've worked too hard. I'm not going to diss them just on that. I understand you want the marketing, you want to get the eyes, you want to get people, you want to win an argument. You almost want to accelerate the growth is what that looks like. And right now, without Comic Dave Smith, there's people running, but nobody has that charisma, nobody has that it factor. None of them can go on Rogan and just shine out of this world. And it did not just about Rogan, but on any platform. Any platform that Comic Dave Smith is on, he's just shining. He just shined. He was the obvious choice, and not doing it did put a damper on this presidential run. But what it shows you is that you need to increase your bench strength. You need to increase your competition. You need to increase the people out there. I personally like Larry Sharp. I always mess up those names because you got Larry Elder, you got Larry Sharp, and then there was this player called Larry Sanders that used to play for Milwaukee Bucks in basketball. He wasn't a great player, but he could block very well, and I used to use him in NBA 2K. So when I say Larry, I want to say Larry Elder, Larry Sharp, Larry Sanders. And I listen back and I mess up those names all the time. Larry Sharp is probably the next, Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, but he's not he never even messed with the Libertarian Party before, so I know that's a reach. But I think he has a name, Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, so I would throw him out. But let's forget about that for a second. Larry Sharp. Larry Sharp I like him a lot. I think that's who I would choose. I mean, he's in New York. I don't know. He's running for governor. I think he's been running for governor. I would want him to run for president. Now, remember, Comic Dave Smith was on with Patrick Bet-David, and I think it was Spike Cohen, who's good as well. It was Spike Cohen, I believe. I forgot who the woman was, but Spike Cohen, Comic Dave Smith, and Larry Sharp. And Larry Sharp he kind of, in that moment, kind of stole the show, even from Comic Dave Smith in a way, on that episode, which is whatever. It's just an episode, and it wasn't a competition for who's stealing the show, but Larry Sharp is really good. He's really, really, really strong, really good. That's who I would probably pick, just me personally. But I don't know everybody in that movement. What about you, Jordan? Oh, Jordan's on RFK. If it's not RFK, Jordan, who else is on that? I need to get my knowledge up on who's in the Libertarian Party, who's up next, all that kind of stuff. But that's who I would go to, is Larry Sharp. I'll do, maybe when we do the Comic Dave Smith celebration, I'll do some Larry Sharp clips. He was on with Dr. Karlin Borisenko a couple months ago, was very good. He's an ideas guy, though. So that's not a bad thing, but he's not he's not Trump. He's not, Comic Dave Smith has some jokes too. He has charisma, don't get me wrong, but he's an idea. He's like Yang 2020. Yang 2020 was an ideas guy. That's what Larry Sharp is. One of the best out there. Jordan Lott says, I like Larry Sharp. I called in the Sharp Way show. He's good. Yeah, he's great. Very bright. Very bright. And I like his take. He's like, I explain the ideas of libertarianism without using the word libertarianism, because what matters is the fundamentals. He's one of the best at explaining the ideas of libertarianism, and he doesn't even say it. He doesn't need to say it. He just says, here are my ideas. And then before you know it, people are like, yeah, I like those ideas. Oh, so that means you like libertarianism. And that's a great idea, because there's many people in MAGA who I think who really need and would like the ideas of liberty. Instead of going into this thinking about, I need to fight back, I need authoritarianism in the opposite way. You don't need authoritarianism in the opposite way. That's just a gang fight. Yes, Arya said, one of our founding fathers didn't want parties either, but I forget who he was. I covered that. That was Thomas Jefferson, wasn't it? I believe it was Thomas Jefferson. It was written in the Federalist, I believe. I forget who wrote that as well. We just talked about that. Talked about it a couple times. I gotta look it up again. But I think it's very harsh language about what the danger of falling victim to political parties. Liberty rocks. Ideas become parties, which become incorporated, which become echo chambers. They become echo chambers and they become basically mental plantations, is what, like, the Democrat Party is just a mental plantation corporation at this point. That's why they say, I want to choose to fill Dianne Feinstein's seat, a black woman, and no one in the Democrat Party questions this as, well, I'm for diversity, but isn't that racism? No one does. No one does that because they know it's almost like you're in an echo chamber that if you don't agree, it could turn into a political gas chamber. And no one wants to play with that on that side. It was Washington? Oh, okay. Thank you, Ray. Ray said it was Washington. My memory's bad on that. But I wanted to just get some thoughts on there. Rest in peace to Dianne Feinstein. And we can learn from the passing. And she's not in Congress anymore. So I have no beef with her anymore, obviously. And her judgment will be out of my hands, not for me. But we can learn from her legacy about power corrupting people. And the reward matters. If we rewarded different things in our society, you could have someone like Dianne Feinstein that would have been a very powerful figure. The powerful figures that we see now in our society are people who, to their own detriment, go against the grain and put their life on the line, much less make money. You could say that about Julian Assange. Julian Assange put his life on the line to open and show corruption. And the criminals are free. He's running scared. So we need to reward different things. And that comes straight from the people. There's no laws or nothing. That's straight from the people. Ray is an upstanding young man, in my opinion, and he's to me steps up to the moment, says, I pray that Jesus gives everyone mercy when they pass. Doesn't matter who that is. Aria, we're going to end on this. Aria says, may God bless her and do what he sees fit. I agree. We'll be back tomorrow. I got a bunch of other stuff that I wanted to get into. There's a lot of stuff. We've seen more stuff on the border. The border stuff is, I got basically an inside clip that someone put on X where border agents are trying to argue back against the policies and they're getting pushback. We've got a border patrol agent giving a pound to an illegal immigrant as they cross the border. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. That's wild. But I'm out, y'all. I appreciate y'all. Take care. Have a good Friday night going into Saturday. We'll meet again. I'll probably be doing a live in the afternoon tomorrow, Saturday. Probably around 1 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. Eastern. Maybe at night too. I'm going to try to stay committed. Take care.